Hello there, and welcome to our next episode of Kerbal Space Program. So, last time we visited the far-off Pluto-like planet of Eeloo, and although fairly uneventful, it was still a challenging mission at least. And we got back very safely, but I did notice there's something funny. Our reputation just keeps falling lower and lower, and even though most people told me that your reputation can't fall unless you do aggressive negotiations, I'm seeing otherwise here. So what I'm going to do here is this one. This one that takes 70% of your reputation and yields more funds for it. I'm just going to get rid of it because I just get this feeling that it's ruining our reputation. I don't know why, even though technically it's not supposed to. I'm just going to get rid of it. So yeah, let's just say goodbye to that. I mean, we still have one giving us funds in exchange for science, which again, we don't really need science too much. And then it is back there in case we want to start it again, but I don't think so. So we'll just end that like that. Now we are getting right down to the wire here. We visited almost every single place in the Kerbal system. There's only a few left. Lathe, Tylo and Vall, and the Sun. The rest of these contracts are just kind of like part tests and flag plants and stuff like that. We're just going to ignore those for now. Lathe I'm saving for a bit, but I am going to knock out Tylo and Vall in this next series, this next mini-series. And yes, we're going to do them both in one mission. Now, these two moons are very interesting. Tylo is quite heavy. It has a lot of gravity for a non-atmospheric moon, which probably makes it one of the most difficult moons to land on because you need so much fuel to get down there and back again. It's basically like landing on, well, it's not quite as heavy as Kerbal. I think it's 0.8. We'll check that out in a second, but it's really, let's just put it this way, you pretty much need a mainsail engine to land on it, and it costs a lot of fuel, so it's going to be tough, but that's why we're here, right? So let's take a look at it. There's the completion awards for us there. And so see, now it's only giving us bonuses when we get science, which makes perfect sense. Our reputation is not really getting harmed at all, which is good because I didn't like that it was taken from it, and I just got the feeling that it was minusing from reputation. But anyways, let's take that contract. And now Vall is a different story. Vall's fairly light. It's basically what you'd expect from a moon. It's much less gravity and it's a little smaller, so that's going to be no problem at all. We'll grab both of those at the same time. I'm not going to grab the Lathe one just yet, because that's what I'm going to save for our spaceplane mission, basically our SSTO mission. But we are going to knock these two out now in this mission, so let's go ahead and just take a glance at them and see what they look like. There's pretty planet Kerbal. Lots of debris floating around it. So let's zoom all the way out. We want to get to the Jewel orbit. Here we are. And that's the two probes that we sent basically to Pole and Bop. So we've done 2 of the 5, but we're going to focus now not on Lathe. Here's Vall and here's Tylo. Let's take a look at Vall first. It's very much looks like Minmus, the same type of colors. One of the last moons to be discovered, and that's funny because that's one of the last ones we're going to visit. Scientists kept attempting to wipe it off the lens. Eventually, after a rash of return telescopes, advanced optics finally decided to tell them that it was an actual object in the sky. Alright, so here's what we're interested in. Gravity, 0.235. So that's just about, that's like Moho gravity, basically. So it's a bit heavy, but not, insurmountable. We can definitely do that. Escape velocity is 1100, basically almost 1200. Not bad at all. That's pretty standard. We can just pick one of these little flat light blue areas. Actually, these are the dark blue areas. The light blue areas, I believe, are a little higher. Very strange planet, or moon rather. Lots of little like short chains of mountains, and then these like little flatbed lakes. So we shouldn't have too hard of a time putting ourselves down. Rotation period's 4 days, so it rotates quite slowly. In fact, I'm fairly certain it's probably tidally locked, which is probably, it explains the long rotation period. Alright, next is Tylo. here it is. This is a whopper, a big, giant, fat moon. It's huge. Let's see what it says. The first one to be discovered. They wanted to take a picture of Jewel. It was finally discovered that the wandering white smear was a moon. The view from the surface with Tylo, Vall, and Jewel ahead must be quite something, indeed. And if you do get them lined up just right, it is actually quite something. You can see both these planets in the sky, and it's very nice. It's harder to see the smaller ones because they're small. But anyway, let's take a look. And there it is, gravity, 0.8. That's only 0.2 lighter than Kerbin, I'm sure of it. Let's just double check, because you never know with this game. Oh man, I'm gonna go to click Kerbin and it's gonna like flick me into... Okay, good. Let's just double check. Kerbin, hello. Gravity 1. Yes, so it's almost as heavy as Kerbin, but you don't get the luxury of having an atmosphere to help you with parachutes or air braking or anything like that, which just makes this probably one of the hardest moons to land on in the entire game. It's quite punctured with craters, and there used to be Carl Sagan's face was on one of these things. I think this is supposed to be like Callisto or Ganymede, one of those Julian moons, or Jovian moons, excuse me. Anyway, sphere of influence, 10,000, basically almost 11,000 kilometers, rotation period 9 days, so it's a little further out, has a slightly longer rotation period than Vall does. So that's our two targets, so we're going to try to hit them in one mission. And so, because that's going to probably require a ton of fuel, I have basically a special design in mind of what I'm going to do in order to get this. Basically what my plan is, I'm going to build a very large ship, constructed in orbit actually, so it's going to require several launches and rendezvous to construct it in orbit like a space station. Basically what it's going to be is a command module in the front with a detachable lander, followed by a ton of fuel, and then some engines at the back, probably nuclear engines. It's going to look probably, I'm going to try to build it like the 2001 A Space Odyssey craft. If you've ever seen that movie, I highly recommend it. I'm going to kind of make it look like that because after all, we are going to the Jupiter analog, and it only makes sense to build something that looks like that. So that the plan is we'll have enough fuel to land on both these moons, and we'll send a lander down to one of them, get it back up, refuel with the main ship, send the whole ship over to the next moon, send the lander down, refuel the whole ship, and then send it all the way back to Kerbin, which I think is totally doable as long as we calculate the proper amounts of delta V. So that's the plan. Let's go to the assembly building and see basically what we can come up with here. It always loads in like that with the water. It looks like the whole KSC was flooded. Anyways, yeah, let's go to the vehicle assembly building and see what we can come up with. Alright, so this is basically what I have come up with here. Well, it's actually a two-parter. This is the first part. I just named it Tylo Command Module Mark II. I had a Mark I, but it just didn't have enough fuel, so I had to go ahead and redesign it. But basically, this is what I've come up with. Now, you can't see it, but it has a mainsail engine underneath this cowling here. And basically what it is, it's a Lander Can Mark II, the two-seater one. It's got a Clampetron Senior on the top, 4 sciences with 4 goos, 4 parachutes around the top, and I just loaded it up with all these little science gimmicky things. It's got a separator for the final stage when it's just going to be this top part coming back home again. It's a little bit different than usual. Usually I just have like a whole lander come home, but I got sick and tired of that. Wanted to keep it more realistic, so I'm just sticking to this just simplistic. I think outrules everything. It's got communications, and on detachable little whatever you call those, decouplers, radial decouplers, I have a full gray tank and then a half gray tank stuck to it with fuel lines running from the outer tanks into this main tank. And like I said, it's got one mainsail engine. Now I've got this thing on Tylo mode, so it's going to tell me my delta V. So the launch stage is stage 6 and 5. 3 and 2 are the entire lander. That has a total delta V of I think 9,000. The stage has 4,000, the stage has 2,000, so that's plenty of delta V to land on Tylo and get back. It takes about 3,000 meters per second to land, and about just about as much to get off the planet. It's with the moon rather. It's a huge body. It's like I said, it's just shy of Kerbin's gravity, but with no atmosphere, so we can't use parachutes to help us land on it. It's probably the second hardest body to land on and escape from again. The first hardest being Eve, of course. But anyways, so as you can see, we're gonna have tons of delta V, and our thrust weight ratio is gonna be 1.4 on Tylo's gravity. So that's just enough. That's very good. You always want that to be over 1 at least. So that's basically going to be the top part of the craft. This is basically going to decouple once we get to Tylo, and we're going to send this thing down to the surface of it. It's also going to go to Vall. Now, of course, Vall's gravity is about the same as Moho, so this is way overpowered for Vall, but I figured if we're going to go big, we're going to go big or go home. We're going to use the same craft to get to both Tylo and Vall. That's the plan. So we have to make it big enough for Tylo, and that's okay if it's overpowered for Vall. There's no problem with that. Anyway, coming down, we have the launch. This is just the launch stage. It's 2 of these large jumbo tanks, and I've got a set of these quad boosters here, quad engines, and on the side, just like basically a half stack version of that with little pointy tips, just for no apparent reason, just because it looks nice. They don't think they serve any sort of aerodynamic purpose whatsoever, but it looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Kind of like a big crayon ship or something. I don't know. But anyway, we're going to launch this thing and get this thing into orbit, and then comes part 2, which is the Tylo fuel storage. And just like I said, in the vein of looking like 2001: A Space Odyssey, basically I've made this thing just all fuel storage and then a couple engines at the back. So let's take a look at what this is. Robotic core here for, when we decouple, of course, in a Clampetron Senior. That's where we're going to dock the Tylo command module with the Tylo fuel storage. You're going to dock together at the head, and when they disconnect, it'll have its own robot to control. It's got power cells and its own SAS. Now coming down, I've given it some RCS. You can see here I've given it some RCS fuel and just kind of balanced it according to the center of mass. We have big, large solar cells, not for any reason in particular except that it looks pretty cool, and just some other solar cells just in case these things blow off or get damaged or something. And I also have a little whatever you call it, a radio, not for any reason whatsoever either, just because it looks cool. And just in case we don't have enough fuel, which we're probably so over budgeted, I have extra tanks on the side. Coming down here, it's one of those big, what do you call them things? The bi-coupler, stack bi-adapter, and I slapped on 2 nuclear engines. 2 decouplers, and then I flipped the bi-decoupler around again and attached a decoupler to that. So basically that's all nice and neat. And this down here is just another launch stage, which I did the maths. It takes about 4,500 to get off Kerbin. This is just enough basically to get this thing into orbit before it disconnects. So the plan is, there's my cat meowing again, the plan is launch this thing up, or launch the first one first, then launch this one up, get these things rendezvoused up, connected together, and then the entire big, giant, huge monstrosity powered by 2 nuclear engines will fling itself towards Jool. And basically what's going to happen is we're going to try to land on Vall first, just because that's easier and I want to get that out of the way first. We'll land on Vall. Once that's accomplished, it'll re-rendezvous with this large thing, refuel itself, because the only purpose this thing is just like fuel storage and power. So it'll refuel itself from these storage here. We'll jet ourselves over to Tylo next, and then once that's all fueled up, we'll disconnect again, go down to the surface, do our science and whatnot, jet back up into space, re-rendezvous, refuel. We'll probably get rid of some of the weight on the main lander, just so we're not carrying a whole lot of weight back. And if we have to, we'll get rid of this weight too. So lots of stuff can decouple, detach, just to save on thrust weight and more delta V. And finally, hopefully we have enough fuel. The whole shebang will power itself back to Kerbin again, where the main command module will detach again, and we'll detach the little tiny top part from the command module, and that'll come in for a nice landing. No kitty. Kitty's walking across my keyboard. She's probably gonna hit like some horrible button that deletes everything. But anyways, that's the plan. It's quite an atrocity, and it's quite an undertaking. It took me a while to actually design it. In fact, this is my second day of designing. I tried some last night, but I just kept failing to make a craft with enough delta V. But I finally got it all hammered out and sorted out. So let's go ahead and launch at least one of these things into space. Let's go ahead and launch the command module first. I feel like that should just go first. I don't know why. No particular reason. There we are. Let's pick a crew. Now, I went into the astronaut hiring place and got a bunch of new crew. Let's see. Who have we not used before? Patry. Sounds like party. So we'll take him. And how about Febro? Because it sounds like Frodo. So Patry and Furbro. Furbro, bro. Okay, anyway, so those are our two Kerbals, our two heroes that are going to brave this mission here. Action groups have just set up custom one to toggle some set of solar panels up here, and that's about all that needs. Doesn't need anything else in that vein. And that's that. Just thinking if I need anything else. I think that's pretty much good. So let's go ahead and launch this giant contraption. When I was testing the lander, there was some kind of disaster that happened, and I luckily I got it on tape here, and so I'll show that at the end of the series in like a blooper reel or something. It was quite entertaining to watch, if I do say so myself. Okay, nice and stable, sort of. It's a little top heavy. That might come into affect us later, but let's just get this thing throttled. We'll get it full throttled just because I feel like it's heavy. And we will launch this thing. Maybe we'll just throttle it 2/3 and see what happens. In 3, 2, 1, go! Not too bad, actually. That's more stable than I thought it was going to be, believe it or not. But, yeah, let's just see how this thing goes. We're dumping fuel out of here like crazy, which does worry me, but you know, I did do the maths, and it supposedly has enough delta V. I mean, all you really need is 4,500. I think that's what it had, according to this thing. Now, it could be wrong. If it is wrong, we'll have to go and do it again, but we'll see. We'll see how we go, right? Febro and Patry. Febro looks quite happy. Patry is a little bit reserved about the mission in general. He's having some doubts about the mission. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't put any Separatrons on here. That could be an issue. But I guess we'll just see. We'll see how we go with that. Separation is coming up very soon, and that is the next thing. Here we go. And full throttle with this. Ooh, she is heavy. Wow, we just barely make one. Yeah, I'm a little bit doubting that this is going to get into orbit. Got a little bit of doubts. Got some doubts about this. I don't know about you guys. Can we make it in orbit in 2 minutes? I don't think so. Could it be that the maths was wrong? You know, that's why I seldom trust math. I know it sounds silly and stupid, but I tend to go with my gut more often. And my gut's telling me right now that this ain't gonna make it. Just doesn't seem to have enough power, first of all, and enough fuel at that, for that matter. But I've been wrong before. It happens occasionally. Who knows? Maybe it'll be just fine. Maybe the maths will be spot on. So we'll just keep pushing this thing over. It's gonna be close, I'll tell you that. Or maybe not close at all. Who knows? I feel like this thing is tipping over headways. Like I'm tapping it just a little bit and it just keeps going until I have to tap it back a little bit. Anyway, we've got about another minute and 10 seconds left of thrust. We'll just keep pushing this thing over to the side. We want a nice even curve here. Basically chasing that prograde vector. I don't know, another minute left of thrust. I'm gonna go ahead and just call it right now. This thing is massively underpowered and underfueled. But you can't really blame me because, well, the math said it was good. So, you know, we'll blame that. It's not my fault, right? Let's just see how we go, though. We'll just keep pushing over. Maybe some magic will happen. Some KSP magic will happen right now. Yeah, this SAS is fighting this thing. This thing wants to just tilt full on over. Yeah, there's not a chance. Not a chance this is going to get into orbit. Not even close. Well, I tell you what's going to happen now is I'm going to go back to the drawing board, just add a couple more stages to our craft here. Let's see, I really would prefer not to use any of this, to be honest with you. I'd rather save that for when we get up there. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to just go back and add a couple more stages on that launch stage. And in the next episode, we're going to perfect it and get these two things launched and hopefully rendezvoused and docked together. So until that time, I'll say thank you for watching, and we'll see you then.